to another edition of T Watches a Scary Movie. I'm T, and we're back here talking scary movies once again, folks. And tonight, we are discussing the new Hellraiser film available right now on Hulu, which was directed by David Bruckner of Night House fame and written by Ben Collins and Luke Piroshki. And I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. I apologize for that. But we're talking some Hellraiser. Now, the thing about Hellraiser is that I am self-admittedly not a huge fan of the early films in the series. I know those are the only ones anybody actually enjoys. Specifically, Hellraiser 2 is always at a high ranking for a lot of people who enjoy that and just horror in general. And of course, Hellraiser 1. And there are some Hellraiser 3 fans because it's basically a slasher with like Pinhead mixed into it, basically. But I was never a big fan of these early entries, honestly. It's not that they're bad. They are not bad films in the least bit. I've just noticed they don't do much for me, honestly. Again, like, they were always the goriest, like, mainstream horror films that I was aware of compared to, like, Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and things like that. And so that didn't appeal that much to me as a kid. Like, I didn't mind seeing gore and a lot of it in, like, a lot of the films that I liked growing up. But Hellraiser never really stood out to me. I never thought the story of the Cenobites and the Lamont configuration really was that interesting. And I say that. I say that that's not an insult, because I get that a lot of people love these movies so much, but it just wasn't that interesting to me. I honestly found myself enjoying the later films in the Hellraiser series a lot more, honestly. I really did think that films like Inferno and Hellseeker and Deader especially, I really enjoy those three films because the way they've been described by a number of other podcasters and horror reviewers is that basically these were other films where the Cenobites were just dropped in. And that's really the way it is, honestly, is that these movies were not really Hellraiser films at all. And we just happened to get Pinhead and the Cenobites into them, and that added like that just little extra spark to these films, honestly. So I enjoyed those later entries a lot more because I felt that they were actually just straight up horror films. And then, hey, here you go, you're actually in hell. This is actually Pinhead. You're actually, living in purgatory. Like, I fucking love that, honestly. And so as awesome as this new Hellraiser was looking, I didn't know how I was going to approach it. I didn't know how I was going to come at it because my biggest worry was that this was just going to be the first and the second movie and the third movie all over again. And again, no shade to them, but those don't do anything for me. They just really don't. And I am surprised and pleased to say that this Hellraiser movie, this new film, is phenomenal. It's actually incredibly awesome. And especially for a fan like me who wants just a story that's a good story without it. I know that's kind of fucked up to say because, like, do I watch a Friday the 13th film and say, oh, this should be a good film without Jason in it? And no, because that's literally the appeal of it. The appeal is Jason. And Nightmare on Elm Street, the appeal is Freddy. In Halloween, the appeal is Michael Myers, but also fucking love Jamie Lloyd and I love Laurie Strode. So these other films do have they don't have that other story kind of appeal, but they still tell fun, absurd stories, or just they have a really good thematic theme that I'm following along with it. And I get it. There's a lore there because Clive Barker wrote the book. In all respects, Clive Barker's fucking awesome. But the story of those first two Hellraisers never really interested me that much because realistically, Christie's story wasn't that interesting. It was more Uncle Frank's story, to where Uncle Frank is this guy who has experienced just all the pleasures in life and he just wants more. He wants a new realm of pleasure. He wants to experience something that he never has before. And unfortunately, that brings him to the Lament configuration where he does the puzzle and he ends up being a victim of Pinhead or the Hell Priest and his evil Cenobites who seek to show him the extreme limits of both pleasure and pain. Now, with that, we kind of get a little bit of that rehashed here in our new Hellraiser story because Roland Voight, who is played by, I'm going to butcher his name, Gordon Visnick, I believe is how it's pronounced now, plays Roland Voight, who is this collector of the occult. and also is seeking to experience new pleasures, new ultimate pleasures. He wants this audience with God, basically, because he wants to experience something that nobody else has. And Roland, unlike Frank, is slightly smarter about it, because we find out that Roland is going to use other people to achieve what he wants, which is also a running theme in the previous films as well too, which I love that they bring that back. And I love that we don't have to start with somebody just being stupid about it. Like, yes, we're going to get to our main character, Riley, here in just a moment, but I love the fact that Roland is immediately set up as, well, he's not an idiot. Like, he knows that something this dastardly, something this dark is not all good. He studies legends, he's read the information, and he's tried not to put himself into danger. As we see at the beginning of the film, he throws this party to where basically he has these people who recruit homeless people to join these parties, and they basically help to open the configuration even more, as unfortunately happens to one of the party goers at the beginning of the film. It's then that we're introduced to Riley, who is played by Odessa Azion, who is the daughter of Hollywood actress Pamela Adlon, who is fantastic. Grease 2, just talking about it the other day. Absolutely love that movie. Showed my wife that for the first time, and that was Pamela Adlon's first film that she did. This is Pamela Adlon's daughter, and she plays Riley, who is a young woman who is trying to stay clean. She's coming off of severe drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and is living with her brother Matt and his boyfriend Colin. And while she's trying to stay clean, she's trying to make money, she's trying to live her life and, not go back to like these old vices of her, she's having such a hard time staying on the straight and narrow and still managing to keep herself in good spirits. And that's led her to her new boyfriend, Trevor, who she met in a 12-step program, who unfortunately offers Riley a possible chance of making a little bit more money and be able to take care of, her share of things and maybe Matt as well, and make all that situation just a little bit better. And all they know about this is that they're breaking into what seems to be an abandoned house, and they're stealing something that's being shipped there, and they're going to hopefully make a lot of money off of it. And we find out that the thing that they're stealing is the limit configuration. And of course, Riley holds on to it, and we know there is no way that this is going to end well. It would be impossible that this is going to end well because, again, the puzzle has to be solved. The puzzle beckons the people. It has to be solved. And of course, Riley discovers that it is a puzzle. And unfortunately, after solving some of this and getting a taste of Pinhead, our hell priest, and the Cenobites as well, we find out that unfortunately it doesn't really care who's opening this box, that the blood and the sacrifices must be made, that these Cenobites must be appeased. And unfortunately, Matt ends up being one of the first victims when Riley enters this entire world of the limit configuration. Now, from there, we get a really interesting story, because I love the fact that we're talking about addiction. We're talking about a character who basically has nothing going for her. And this is the kind of victim that we're shown at the beginning of the film would walk right into this kind of trap. And Riley doesn't willingly walk into it. She does it with the best of reasons, with the best ideas in mind. And unfortunately, it backfires on her, and it takes the support system that she has. And I think that's super important to show in this film, is that Matt is her support system. Regardless of the fights that they have with each other, Matt is the one that's truly pulling for her and wants her to get better and wants to help, but is trying to also not hold her hand as well too. And when Matt is ripped away by whether you want to blame Riley for it or not, Riley is basically the reason why Matt gets ripped away from the world. And she's looking for any possible way to bring him back, any possible way to find out what happens, because she's not sure. Is Matt dead? Is Matt just gone somewhere and she can track him down and bring him back to where she is? She doesn't know that. We know what happens because, again, we've seen Hellraiser films before, so we know, unfortunately, that Matt is truly gone at this point. But there is also more of a focus on the blood. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say that I remember so much in the first like couple of films about the fact that, you know, anybody who got stabbed by the actual puzzle itself, that's who they claimed on it. Usually it was if you solved the puzzle, that summoned all the demons at that point, and that's when you were fucked. So it wasn't about getting cut or anything. You play with the puzzle, you're screwed. Frank played with it. Christy played with it, and then, you know, Pinhead basically blackmailed Christy into saying, look, it's either you or you get Frank back to us. It's one or the other. And then, of course, Pinhead don't fucking care at all. So, of course, they decide that they're going to turn on Christy and, you know, collect her regardless. And the same idea is kind of presented here to Riley as well, too, that, hey, Riley, you've played with this box, and unfortunately, other people who have interacted with it have shed blood, and so now they're targeted. But it goes a step further, because we show that the Cenobites are willing to do whatever it takes to fulfill their own bloodlust, their own desires as well, including tricking Riley to getting herself stabbed on the puzzle, and therefore offering her the same kind of blackmail that, look, it can be your blood or it can be somebody else. They want Riley to basically make these terrible choices that'll put her friends and family in danger. And that should speak to this story. It's such a great story because that's also the way that addiction works, is that when you have these terrible addictions that are wrecking your life, a lot of times they're not just wrecking your life. They're having this negative effect on your family and friends as well, too. And you have to decide who's ultimately going to be the one that suffers for this. Is it going to be you or is it going to be them? And you have to be the one that makes that choice. And that's a running theme that goes here in Hellraiser, is that Riley is faced numerous times with making these choices about who ends up suffering. And the point goes in a little bit further because, for example, Matt and Riley's brother Matt and his boyfriend Colin also have a roommate, Nora, that lives with them as well, too. And Nora, unfortunately, spoiler alert, very big spoiler alert here, Nora unfortunately becomes a victim of the Cenobites as well. And Nora's kind of one who, like, she's on the outskirts of all of this. Like, you can argue Colin's more involved because Colin is Matt's boyfriend. And Trevor is involved because Trevor is Riley's boyfriend. But Nora's kind of on the outs, and Nora gets fucked over hard for doing nothing but wanting to be there for Riley. And again, it's showing the dangers and some of the side effects of addiction, that sometimes people get screwed over when all they're trying to do is help. They're just trying to offer the best that they possibly can. And at first, like, I felt bad for Nora. I felt terrible for her, but I also felt like this was absolutely what they're showing as a side effect of addiction, is that sometimes people who don't deserve it are going to get hurt because of the choices that you made. And because of these choices that Riley made, like, Nora gets hurt by it. And again, I'm going to try to stay away from major spoilers. The movie just launched on Hulu. It's absolutely fantastic, and you all should watch it. But what I will say, though, is that I do feel that one of the things that seemed very, very clear from the jump was one character not being necessarily who they said that they were going to be. And I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad for the story. Good because you could probably expect it. You could probably assume who that character is right from the jump there. But bad also because I don't know if that was necessary. I don't think that was actually needed for the story, especially given the way that everything concludes for a number of these characters. I don't know if we actually needed that to further this story anymore. Like, I feel like we already had a really, really good selling point for it, and that it didn't really add that much here, honestly, to it. But that might just be me. That might just be me who thinks that it just wasn't the best way to go about telling this story. But who knows? Who knows? I got a satisfying conclusion out of it. This is definitely gory as hell, for sure. But the one thing that actually worked a little bit better for me, because, again, I've told y'all time and time again on this show, I don't do so well with gore these days. There's a lot of eye blocking and peeking through, and now I'm just going to look away. And this was, as gory as it wasn't as gory as I thought it was going to be. And that made it a little bit easier for me to watch. Like, honestly, the various scenes with characters cutting themselves or getting pricked on the puzzle actually were, to me, worse than anything with the hooks and the chains and like the tight wire and everything. I thought that that was a little bit worse because those cuts were very vicious in this story. But either way, it is very tense. And I'd be remiss to not talk about our Cenobites that are led by Jamie Clayton, who plays the Hell Priest. And I guess we're not really calling them Pinhead because, Clive Barker has always said he hates that name and then went on to kind of write that the Hell Priest also hates that name as well, too. So we're going to try to stick to Hell Priest. I know that's the thing in horror. I know Doug Bradley obviously loves the name Pinhead, and that's in a lot of things as well, too. But Jamie Clayton plays the Hell Priest here, and I honestly love the design of all these Cenobites throughout the story. I really, really did. Each of them have their own vices in it, their own way of killing their victims, which I thought was really interesting. I also thought it was really interesting, too, that Hellraiser sets up that this is absolutely a killer in a series to where you can't really run from. Like, we know in Friday the 13th, just get out of Camp Crystal Lake, you're probably fine. In Nightmare on Elm Street, if you don't sleep, then you're good as well, too. I know that's not realistic. We know in Halloween, if you're not in Haddonfield, you're probably fine as well, too. But Hellraiser kind of shows you that no matter where you are, no matter what your circumstance is, the bill always comes due. That the priest and the Cenobites will always come to collect one way or another. And they show that various times, including the awesome death scene of, again, spoilers, Nora. To where, like, Nora gets taken in a fucking car. And I absolutely love the way that they set that kill up because we all think as well, too, while we're watching it, that Nora's going to be perfectly fine. And, it's really not going to be at the end of this when you really think about it. Now, the Cenobites are imposing, they're brooding, they're scary. I love the makeup and the design of them. I love the idea that they're all still in their own various pains as well here too, and they're just looking to inflict more, to expand your knowledge of pleasure and pain. It's so good. And again, there are so many nod backs to a number of these Hellraiser films, including, again, a lot of things get said, the way that the puzzle box is looking for more blood to basically complete itself. Even the maze that we know from Hellraiser to Hell on Earth, or not Hell on Earth, Hellraiser to Hellworld, right? Yeah, Hellworld. Hellraiser, what? Or Hellseeker? Guys, again, it's Hellbound, right? It's Hellbound. Yeah, it's Hellbound. I had to look that up really quickly. Again, y'all, I've seen these films. I own these films. It's just they're not big for me. They're really not that big for me. But absolute fantastic with the nods to more of the older films in the series. And what I did actually think was incredibly interesting is that I know this is a reboot, but it also stands the question of, is it? Does it have to be a reboot at all? Like, I'm not saying it has to be a sequel because the fun that everybody's having these days is legacy sequels. We connect you to the movies that we want to. We ignore everything else. So, I mean, could this end up being a sequel to 1 or 2? It absolutely could. There's nothing really to contradict that because there's been many owners of this puzzle box. So what's to say that the Cotton Frank Cotton had this, and then Christie had it at that point too, and then it didn't just get passed down, and Roland Voigt ended up acquiring this. We don't know that. And I know that's not really an important point here, but I do think it's worth mentioning that there's nothing in this film that makes it necessarily having to be a reboot. It doesn't have to be at all because it doesn't cancel out anything that's happened before. So I'm just putting that out there. I know they're saying it's a reboot. I'm just saying, is it possible it takes place in the same universe? Because we're obsessed with the multiverse right now. Why couldn't it just take place in the same universe? So I posed that question. Need you to watch and tell me what you think, whether or not this really is a reboot or whether it's just taking place in the same exact world as well. Watch it, check it out. It's on Hulu, but you're going to absolutely love it. I want to hear your thoughts, folks. This is Hellraiser 2022.
Hey,
Hey everybody, I appreciate you checking out this video, whether it was a review, whether it was a new episode, whether it was an unboxing, an interview, or whatever else. I want to remind you, you can check out my separate reviews also on my YouTube page, and new full episodes go up every Wednesday night on YouTube at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and on your favorite podcasting platforms at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like and share. My name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.